This is Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. We'll begin as we normally do in a moment, but first, last night,
You will
this
be delivering
happened.
what is being dubbed the most anticipated monologue in late night in years.
Revolution. Change? Yeah.
I'm not sure who had a weirder 48 hours, me or the CEO of Tylenol.
The talent he had no, because a lot of people have no talent, they get ratings. But he had no ratings.
Well, I do tonight. Thank you.
My reaction to this is in 4 parts, but pretty simple. A, bringing Jimmy Kimmel back was the right move by Disney. B, Disney, as a private corporation, has the right to do as it pleases with its programs and with its employees. Remember, the First Amendment to the U.S. Constitution protects us from punishment from our government for exercising that right, not by private corporations over comments made on a comedy program about the late Turning Point USA co-founder Charlie Kirk, or anybody for that matter. Which leads to C, the influence by our government, or perhaps the attempted influence of this from FCC Chairman Brendan Carr, is anything to go by, and Disney having taken the action to sideline Kimmel in the first place was wrong. Even Fox's Brit Hume said as much. And D, while I'm glad to see Kimmel return to the airwaves, he's a far better man than I, because I'll tell you, if it was me whose show on a major network was sidelined because of pressure from the government, however big that pressure was, I would have told Disney to find the biggest pumpkin they could find and
ram it right up your ass. Would you like it whole or diced?
There's no constitutional right for anybody, even your humble host, to have a show. But the Constitution is not a convenience store for your preferred political flavor. There's freedom of speech, and you have the freedom not to listen. But that should be your choice, not the government's. Disney's action in sidelining Kimmel, and thus not standing up for First Amendment principles, and the continued actions as of the time of this recording from Nexstar and Sinclair are outrageous. Now, yes, as private businesses, Nexstar and Sinclair have the right to do this. It's not illegal, after all, for business owners to be morons. But if I'm the mouse, I would immediately exercise the one bit of leverage I still have, and that is to revoke the affiliations of both station groups, and I do that in short order. See how those stations like it. I'm sure the specter of not getting Monday Night Football, of which the Ravens sadly lost to the Lions earlier this week, will cause those groups to change their tune real quick. Oh, by the way, when you have Rand Paul and Ted Cruz saying that the FCC head's actions were over the top, you may have a bit of a problem. Or, put another way in this letter from the American Civil Liberties Union, quote, regardless of our political affiliation or whether we engage in politics or not, we all love our country. We all share the belief that our voices should never be silenced by those in power, because if it happens to one of us, it happens to all of us. We on this show will not be silenced, and nor will I. And it is with that that we begin the latest edition of Fit to Speak. Hello and welcome to Fit to Speak. I'm Eugene Obah. So glad to have you with us. Today I'll be joined by documentary filmmaker and senior lecturer Josh Davidsburg at the Merrill College of Journalism at the University of Maryland to provide a greater window into Terrence Woods as a student and as a person, as we continue to ask, where is Terrence Woods? And joining me now is Josh Davidsburg, documentary filmmaker and senior lecturer at the Merrill College of Journalism over at the University of Maryland. Josh, welcome to the show. It is great to have you on our program. And let's go ahead and get started. So, Josh, you caught Terrence Woods. Terrence has been missing now. Sadly, by the time we put this out, will be close to 7 years.
It's crazy.
Yeah.
It is crazy. This is a very crazy case. He was in Idaho for the Discovery Channel. He was freelancing for a production company called Raw TV on the Dave Turns Lost Mine. And he's been missing ever since. And there seems to have been more questions than answers up to this point. Um, as I mentioned on the top of this, you taught Terrence. You had the opportunity
I
to
did.
teach him over at the journalism school.
Yes.
What did you make of Terrence? What was your first impression of him?
Yeah. Well, so I taught Terrence, it was probably exactly a decade ago. He was one of my first students, first semesters teaching. It was actually my second semester. I was a brand new adjunct. And Terrence just would light up a room when he would walk in. He had this like amazing smile that kind of energized everybody. Um, he had, it's like an interesting mix of being quiet, but still outgoing and energetic at the same time. And he got along with everyone in the class. Everybody loved him. And he was just one of those students that talking to him and seeing his work, you knew he was going to do well.
Looking at his work, I mean, I am an alum. You and I, we're alums of the journalism school. I am still very much come down for regular visits. And when he was in the Capitol News Service, which is the broadcast bureau over at the University of Maryland, we've got an advisor and so forth, but you have all the students doing a regular newscast. And from what I remember of Terrence, he definitely seemed to me like very much a go-getter, somebody who really will really go out there and do stuff.
He really was. And, you didn't have to tell him twice. He understood the visual language and the reporting that comes along with broadcast news. And just kind of a standout.
It's called blight, late blight to be exact, and it is indeed a fungus. It affects tomatoes and certain other crops and ultimately causes the produce to rot. The start of a new semester here at the University of Maryland doesn't just mean bustling the classes. It also means droves of students coming into the visitor center for campus tours.
That's what kind of makes this whole thing so devastating, is how promising he was as a student in my class and Capitol News Service.
Yeah, and when you see the fact that when you're in the journalism school, one of the great things about the journalism school, it's a very close-knit community. It's one of the smaller schools over at the University of Maryland. But one of the great things is that so many people have been able to have a lot of success. And when you look at the success that Terrence has had after the time at Maryland, on both sides of the pond, you look at some of his stuff stateside, you look at some of the stuff in the UK, making an independent film. He was on The Voice UK, doing behind the scenes stuff there. And, again, working with this company, with Discovery Channel on Gold Rush. So when you look at the work that's been done, it makes it all the more frustrating that he is missing.
Absolutely.
It's just unbelievable. And what was your reaction when you found out that he went missing?
Right. Well, I want to point something out, that at the time, we were we've taught a very specific curriculum. It was broadcast news, right? And Terrence was able to take all of that and transition into documentary. And that wasn't that wasn't something that I had a lot of students doing at the time. It really showed how forward thinking he was as a student, how he knew kind of what he wanted to do, how he took the curriculum that we created and used it to pivot and transition into a field that at the time was growing and was about to kind of explode. We hadn't hit the golden age of documentary at that point. So, he would have been in the perfect place just to succeed and explode in that industry. And, when I first heard what happened to him, or first heard that he went missing, because we still don't know what happened to him, I was shocked, depressed. you know, it was really upsetting that a student with such abilities and promise just could disappear like that.
Yeah, I mean, it was quite shocking indeed. That again, when you think about it, you and I, we have been fortunate enough, as with a lot of people within our circles, to have been on film sets, to have been on productions, that sort of thing. And when I think even about the safety aspect of it, we know that we are responsible for anything that happens on that set. We, the buck stops with us.
And the people that work for you as well, you know, if you have PAs and you have PAs and interns and that kind of stuff, you got to look out for them.
You do.
Yeah.
You do. And that's why, one of the reasons I even asked some of these earlier questions is that there has been the reporting, some of the narrative that has been painted about Terrence, that, he ran on down the cliff. Oh, he grabbed a drone out of the sky. Oh, there was the producer that was on set the day that Terrence disappeared, Simon G, who stated that apparently, according to Terrence's father, who I interviewed last year on this program, that stated that Terrence was a disappointment and wouldn't even get him a piece of fruit. I mean, how bizarre is that?
That doesn't sound like, I mean, I can't speak to what specifically was happening on that set, but that's not the same Terrence that I had in my classroom. I mean, he was always willing to help and go out of his way for other students. And, at that age, as young people are going through their 20s, like the chemistry in their mind changes. But there were no signs to me at the time as a student that he was dealing with any kind of mental instability or anything
There
like
was
that.
nothing that you would raise a red flag, or he wasn't somebody who was inauthentic. You said that he is kind to everybody. You did not see anything that would raise any sort of suspicion
No,
as to.
I mean, I felt like you knew Terrence the second you met him, basically. I things change in people's mind chemistry, but from what I saw, he was just a genuinely nice, helpful kid. I would have hired him personally in a second for any of my productions. He would be on the top of my list from former students.
Oh, same here. Same here. If, I needed anything, with this production company, Common Sense Entertainment, there is no doubt that he would be a star on, any of, my productions, what we do here, or really for anybody. And again, it goes back to when you look at the body of work that he has done, not just during the time at University of Merrill, because also remember, he was on Viewfinder. He was on Viewfinder. That was the one of the documentary stuff, long form, with Bethany Swain at that
Right.
point. And that was some really great stuff right there. So when you look at that, it's just, again, all the more frustrating here.
Yeah, and that class, that was a grueling class. A lot of hard work went into the work that they were doing in that class, and it reflected in the quality. It wasn't unnecessarily hard, but he was a star in that class. He shined in front of everybody, right? Really stand
Big
out.
time.
Yeah.
Big time. It was quite the standout. And that's why, one of the many reasons that we here on this program are very passionate about this case, and ensuring that the Woods family, especially his father, really get the answers that are justly deserved. And I'm very encouraged by the little bit of pickup that we're starting to see on the national level. I mean, his case was featured on America's Most Wanted this past spring, America's Most Wanted Missing Persons. And I've personally had some preliminary conversations with the Baltimore Banner to see whether, they will put some stuff out on this story. Yes, Terrence is a Prince George's County resident, but I do think that this has quite a bit of local interest, and I hope that they could pick that. Yeah,
They are expanding to Montgomery County and maybe PG County, but definitely Montgomery County. So I feel like this
yeah,
would be in their wheelhouse.
I think so too, and I hope that we really get that, because this is a story that we believe has to be told. This has to be told with the same kind of fervor that so many other missing persons cases really have. And I think one of the big questions is, it's been tough, really, to try and get a lot of that national pickup. So now I'm like, how do we continue to raise the consciousness, Josh? How do we raise the consciousness of Terrence's story and
Well, I
making sure
think,
that it's out there? Yeah.
yeah, I think you're doing a great job with the stuff that you're doing. And I think we just got to keep pitching it to other large national outlets, and whenever there's a reason to share it, even if there isn't a reason to share it. Just try and keep it. It's hard with a case that's been so long, to keep it in the forefront, especially with like our 24-hour news cycle and everything like that. But I think you're doing a amazing work with this, and you keep it up, please.
Thank you. We really appreciate it, Josh. And we are committed to continuing to cover Terrence's story. And really, one of the things that has really come off of this has been the independent investigation that the Primary Defined podcast hosts Mehul Anjaria and Dion Mitchell are doing. We'll have the link to that in the YouTube description below, because that is very important. We really need the support on that. And I guess in our final moment that we have, Josh, on this here interview, what do you hope happens in this case? What do you hope for?
I'm hoping that the dream would be that he's found, right? That's the dream. At least I don't know his parents, but at the very least get them some closure. Just want to know what happened, right?
We want to know exactly what happened here. There have been really, as you mentioned, with the close to now 7 years that this has been the case, with each passing day that we don't get answers, it makes it harder and harder. And having talked with Terrence's father, look, I'm not a parent, right? I'm not a parent, but I can only imagine the kind of pain that he feels, especially, because in the interview that we did, like, he works for Metro, and what he said on the show is that it's like a cancer. It's kind of like the fact that his son is missing is like a cancer. It stays with you. It's like you have to put a smile on your face out in public, working for Metro, that sort of thing, do this. But then when you get back into the home, it's a very different thing. And that is why we really need to ensure that we keep this story out in the forefront, hearing from folks like you who have had the opportunity to work with Terrence, to teach Terrence, and really provide the perspective of what he is like as a person. And we hope that he is still out there, but having your perspective, Josh, is so great. And I really appreciate the time that you've had and that you've taken really to join us. Josh Davidsburg at the Merrill College of Journalism and documentary filmmaker, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
In under 2 weeks, it will mark 7 years, sadly, since Terrence has been missing. Let there be no doubt that we here at Common Sense Entertainment and CSE Media, which produces this program, have been the preeminent media that have consistently covered Terrence's case and his story. We are one of the few outlets that have really provided what I believe the coverage that this story really does deserve. And there needs to be more of it. And we will continue. We are committed to continuing to cover this case and Terrence's story. But at the end of the day, it's not about us. It's not all about us. It's about the Woods family, especially Terrence's father, who I was very fortunate enough to interview him for a two-part exclusive interview last year. In case you missed that or wish to catch up with all of our coverage of Terrence's case, we have a dedicated playlist right here on this YouTube channel, a link of which we'll have in the description below. And you can, if you're watching on another screen, scan the QR code so that you are the first to get any of these updates. Also, as mentioned during Josh's interview, we have a link to the crowdfunded independent investigation being led by Crime Redefined podcast hosts Mehul Anjaria and Dion Mitchell. Do go to GoFundMe.com/investigating-the-disappearance-of-Terrence-Woods, where you'll see the details, and if you are able, to donate. We must find Terrence, and we will, together, with your support. You can be the difference maker in this case. Thank you so much for watching. Listen, there's going to be a lot more where that came from, so you better stay tuned to catch it all. In the meantime, don't forget to follow us on all of our social media accounts for more information, including all of the bonus content that you'll see from today's show. And don't forget to subscribe and ring the bell on our YouTube channel so that you do not miss any of our episodes. And do subscribe to our Substack page, csemedia.substack.com, to support all of the work that we do here. Until next time, I'm Eugene Obah, and remember, we will not be silenced.